All right, hi everyone. Welcome to Job Search Strategies. Today we have Rebecca Davis joining us. For all of you from UVA, she is a UVA alum as well as an NC State A to I alum. She's got an interesting career path, and we're excited to have her here with us today. So please join me in welcoming Rebecca Davis. Go ahead, Rebecca.
Thanks, Joe. Hello, everybody. Thanks for tuning in today to hear my talk about making the jump from academia to industry. My name is Rebecca Davis. I am a project manager at Q Squared Solutions, which is part of IQVIA. We perform genomics analysis and testing of clinical trial samples for big pharmaceutical companies. And so I just last week celebrated my second anniversary at Q Squared. And so I'm going to give you a little bit about my journey and how I ended up where I am. And that's it. So we'll just get started. All right. Have a look at this fresh-faced, smiling PhD graduate receiving her hood at her PhD graduation ceremony. Doesn't she look just ready to go out into the world and immediately get a fulfilling and high-paying industry job with the first application she sends out? Nope, that's not what happened at all. And in case you haven't guessed, this smiling graduate student on the screen here is me. I decided during the course of my PhD work that academia was not for me, and I wanted to make the great leap from academia to industry. I did my graduate work at a school where industry was a dirty word, and there was no support or guidance for graduate students who wanted to take that alternative career path into industry and leave behind academia. I knew it wouldn't be easy to make this switch over, so I moved to the RTP area where there's such a high number of jobs and great deal of opportunity, and promptly spent 1 year doing my job search wrong in every way you possibly could do it wrong. I thought I didn't have the experience needed for a PhD level industry job, so I applied for master's degree jobs and bachelor's degree jobs. I applied for scientist jobs, medical writer jobs, medical liaison jobs, data analyst jobs. I applied for basically any job I could possibly connect to something I had an interest in or had the word science in the title. I blasted out my resume to probably 80 to 100 HR online portals for different biotech and pharmaceutical companies in the area. Armed with a poorly written resume that was basically a CV copy pasted into a different format, I went about this fruitless process. And for an entire year of my efforts, I got 1 phone screening interview, 0 in-person interviews, and 0 jobs. The 1 screening interview I did get was an HR employee just basically wanting to know why I was applying to a bachelor's level job with a PhD. So after a year of this and a great deal of discouragement, I gave up and applied for a couple of research associate positions at NC State. Within 2 weeks of this, I had 2 interviews and accepted one of the positions. My time at NC State as a research associate and then later a postdoc over the course of 5 years was a very enriching period in my life, and I very much value it. I learned a lot and gained a lot of experience. But in the end of that, I knew I still wanted to go into industry. Specifically, I was ready to leave the lab and stop doing wet lab work or bench work. The difference this time around when beginning my job search was that I took part in the Accelerate to Industry program at NC State and learned that my job search strategies and not my value were the reason I was lacking success that whole first year of trying. So during all of this new training in the Industry Immersion program and all of my research, I found basically 3 main principles to change my strategy in job searching. And I ended up being successful in my job search. So I want to share with you briefly today the 3 main principles that I discovered made the biggest difference to my job search. Okay, my first piece of advice for you as you begin your job search, or as you continue and you want to make your job search better, is to learn more about yourself. Think about the things in your current job that you like and you don't like. For example, during my time at NC State, my mentor received a grant from the Department of Defense and DARPA to fund the work that I was doing. When you receive funding from the DoD, they require a great deal of information and monthly teleconference updates about how you're spending their money. So because my mentor is a busy guy and he had a lot of other grants, he handed this responsibility to me. I had to host these monthly telecons and give updates of the data that I had generated. I had to give updates of how we were spending the money that we were being given and where we were in a budget of the overall spending of the project and month by month. I had to give progress reports and goals for where we would be in the next month based on where we were in the project. And I had to give risk mitigation strategies if things weren't going well and we had to come up with a new way of doing things. So after a while, I found that I enjoyed doing this kind of project management side of things more than I enjoyed actually generating the data that I was presenting. I really like the management of the project more than the wet lab, actual bench science. So for me, that was kind of lucky for me to start to find the parts of my job that I liked and the parts that I was less interested in. So when you think about this, think about questions like this. Do you want to transition out of the lab and maybe have a goal of working from home 100% someday? Do you want to split your time between lab work like you may be doing now and data analysis versus meetings and interacting with other colleagues, perhaps during strategy meetings? Do you like regulations and details and paperwork and making sure every I is dotted and every T is crossed? For example, in regulatory documents like FDA documents. Or does the idea of working on Microsoft Excel or Word all day long bore you to tears? You would rather spend the day talking to potential clients about your company or maybe about what your company can offer, like a sales representative. My suggestion for you is that you don't apply to just every job out there like I did. At best, doing this can waste your time, and at worst, it can send your resume straight to the no pile if you're overqualified. Now, you can be open to other ideas, and your choices and your ideas will evolve as you move forward in your job search. But the key here is to try to find some focus. Another great way to start to think about what you like and don't like in your job is to use your networking sessions. So instead of spending the whole time during your networking session thinking about what can I say about myself and how can I get my resume out of my hot little paw and into the hand of this person so he or she will help me or pass it on or get me a job. Because I know it can be kind of nerve-wracking and you can be panicking and trying to achieve a specific goal when you're networking. But my suggestion to you is to actually ask the person that you're talking to about what they do during a typical day and actually listen to how they answer. If they describe their day and you find yourself sitting there thinking, I'm pretty sure I would rather watch paint dry all day than do what you do, then that position is probably not for you. However, if you find yourself really interested and passionate and like you share a common interest with this person about what they do and what they do all day, then I think that can be a good choice to help you guide your search. This was one of the best sources of information for me because, as I said, I came into industry without a lot of connections and without a lot of awareness as to what jobs were available and what I wanted and what I didn't want. And so this listening to people and what they do just on a day-to-day basis kind of helped me figure that out and help me align that with what I was learning about what I liked and what I wanted and what my goals were. The last suggestion I have is to do a little bit of LinkedIn research. And I call it research because it sounds a whole lot less creepy than LinkedIn stalking. But in all seriousness, when you do find someone who is doing what you are doing or what you're interested in doing, via networking, look at his or her position on LinkedIn and the words that are used in his or her title. Search for available jobs that have those words and read the description and the responsibilities to further hone your search. And the cool thing about LinkedIn also is that you can see the different levels when when someone comes into a company, the position that they start at, and then they get promoted and then they get a higher level. So you can see what these different jobs are called and what the example words and keywords and hot words are in these titles that people have. So that is my suggestion for 3 ways to kind of figure out how to know yourself better and know what you're looking for better in your job search. Okay. My next suggestion for you after learning how to know yourself is to begin to educate yourself. So once you start to figure out what you like and what you don't like about your current job, continue to network with people and talk to people about what they do and what options you have. But also listen to people's story about how they got where they are. Did they take a circuitous path to get there, or was their first position in industry exactly what they were aiming for? Because I think it's more often you will find that sometimes people do take a circuitous route and they try something and they try something else and they network and they end up maybe in a different place than when they started. And as they learn more about themselves, they get to where they want to be. So I think people are happy to tell their story. And then for me, I'm happy to come here today and tell you guys about my story. But when you're networking, pay attention to where people were and where they ended up and why they made that change, because they probably did the same thing you did. They learned more about themselves and they found their way to where they ultimately wanted to be. Don't be afraid to ask questions like, I understand what you do, but what teams do you interact with and what are their functions and how do you work together? So as an example, as a project manager, I work with our sales team, and that sales team matches clients with the services we offer, and they deal with the contracting and getting clients connected with the right service from our company. I also work with the finance team, and that team does the invoicing and deals with the POs with the client and kind of the money side of things and the pricing side of things. And I also work with the assay development team, who are the scientists in the lab at my company who are actually back in the lab designing and testing new custom assays for our clients based on their needs or on a research question that they have. So I have a lot of knowledge about what those people do too. So the more that you ask about at these networking sessions, the more kind of hidden information like that you can find. And if the person you're networking with is amenable, sometimes he or she may be willing to connect you to someone who does a different job function. I certainly have done this in the past when helping others network. During the course of our conversation, I may find out that this job seeker is really interested in the finance side, so I'll connect him or her with someone I know in finance. So don't be afraid to ask those kinds of questions. I think people are very much willing to tell you who they interact with and what they do. And I think that can be really helpful and used as a tool. Lastly, volunteer to take on projects or duties in your current position that are similar to what you want to do. I was kind of lucky that this happened to me when I received the duties of project management, but you can request tasks like this. For example, ask to do a project to improve one lab process. For example, maybe reagent tracking or inventory or the service of lab equipment, where you can make sure it's serviced every year by the particular date and speak to the vendors. Or you could volunteer as an undergrad career mentor. These things, if chosen well, can give you a taste of what a future job in that role might look like and give you great bullet points for your resume. So if you see yourself becoming a manager down the road, it's a great choice to volunteer to be a mentor and help some undergraduates with their job search or with their science, so that you have that under your belt and you have that to talk about in your interviews. Companies in biotech and pharmaceutical are always looking to improve processes for greater efficiency and greater production, as well as lowered costs. So if you can show that you're able to do that, that can be a valuable way to make yourself stand out from other candidates. All right. So the third, and what I feel like is the most important kind of key lesson I learned when revising my job search strategy, is to sell yourself. I felt like this guy on the left when I was doing my first unsuccessful year of job searching. I felt like, man, can't somebody understand that I really am great? And if you would just hire me and give me a chance, then I can show you what I can do. And I think that is the key. The key is that your worth is not lacking when you're having lack of success in job searching. It's more potentially that your strategies aren't the best. And so here are a couple of ways that you can learn how to show your worth and share it with potential companies that you may want to work for. The first step is to revamp your resume. And I mean a resume and not a CV. Companies in the industry are businesses, and they look for accomplishments and skills that can help their company grow and make more money. Accomplishments, you say? Like what? Look at this list of 24 papers I'm an author on, so please hire me to be a project manager or a salesperson. No, not like that at all. Show them what you did in your academic job translates to something that's useful for their business. So here's an example. During my postdoc, my mentor decided that our cDNA synthesis kits from Thermo were getting way too expensive and told me, you got to find a better deal. So I researched a couple of different vendors. I got some free samples by talking to a couple of sales reps on the phone. I did a couple small experiments to test them and then gave my recommendations for the best alternative to my mentor, which we ended up starting to order. No big deal, right? But on my resume, I can make that sound like a whole lot more. I wrote that I had evaluated reagent performance from multiple vendors to find a more economical source for a vital consumable and save the lab $1,200 per year. So that's kind of an example how you can package something that you were already doing in your job that was maybe not a big deal to you or anything different or new, but the way that you package it can show something valuable to a company. That dollar sign right there, the savings of $1,200, shows that you have saved your mentor money and you have done process improvement for taking the initiative and done process improvement for your lab. Similarly, showing numbers on your resume is strong. For example, I mentored 3 graduate students and 1 undergraduate summer volunteer. Sounds a whole lot better than just a bullet point, mentored younger students. Or tracked project spending and came in at or under budget for 11 out of 12 months. That really brings home the point by showcasing the number side of what you did. These are just a couple of ideas, but I recommend you take a resume writing workshop or evaluation session where you're going to walk in proudly with your resume and walk out with it dripping with red ink, because that is certainly what I did. Lastly, many HR employees don't necessarily have a deep scientific background. So ask a non-scientist to read your resume. If there's too much technical jargon and he can't understand anything on it, it's perhaps time for some revision. The next step is to write an elevator pitch or a 90-second blurb on who you are, what you do, and what your goals are in networking. So you guys may have heard a little bit about elevator pitches thus far in your training in this job search strategies, but I can't stress enough how important these are. You can find tons of examples of good elevator pitches on the internet. The key is, after you write it, to practice it. I want you to use it on unsuspecting strangers. So maybe next time you're at a gathering where there are people you don't know and you probably never see again, like when your friend makes you go to the karaoke bar that you don't like, or you have to take Aunt Hilda to her weekly bingo test, or her weekly bingo, test it out. Practice is key. Next, attend practice interview sessions and take advantage of every one of these opportunities that you have. They're often free and sponsored by many different organizations within the university. For example, the College of Arts and Sciences, the Grad Student or Postdoc Association, and the Career Center. I went to every one of these I possibly could, the ones that I was eligible for, and I even sneaked into one undergrad one time, trying to get more practice. And the reason why this is valuable is that you will get some of the standard questions like, why are you looking into this company? Or what are your strengths and weaknesses? Or name a time when you had conflict in the workplace. Yes, we all know these basic standard stale interview questions. You'll receive those and you'll get a chance to practice them. But what you're also going to get is the left field question, the really different zinger question that comes from someone and you're not expecting it. So having that experience, that kind of nervous, high stress experience of being in a practice interview and have someone give you a question like that can make you much more prepared when you actually encounter this in the real world. And I can say that doing this practice made me feel less nervous during the actual interview. And it gave me a chance to practice my STAR stories, which is something that if you haven't heard about yet in this job search strategies, you will. So it's a way to kind of highlight and showcase your accomplishments. So my last piece of advice for you in selling yourself is to make sure that your entire package is professional. While I would love to have a pink glitter-coated business card written in fancy script because it expresses my personality, I know that my business card represents me as a package and the package that I'm selling. So you want to make sure that your business card is professional as well as your LinkedIn profile photo. When you go to networking sessions, look professional. You don't need to wear a 3-piece suit, but you can. When I went to networking sessions as a new member of the RTP industry community, I saw job hunters who were there. And the ones who stood out to me were the ones dressed professionally, the ones maybe wearing a suit and tie or dressed up more than their peers, because this gave me the message that that person cared about what he was there seeking and was willing to put in a little bit of extra effort to get what they wanted. And so when I see people like that, I find myself much more willing to chat with them and offer connections and to reward them for their efforts than maybe I would be with someone who didn't look quite as professional. So that is kind of my last point on selling yourself. And overall, I think with this last strategy of selling yourself being the most important of the three, I think this is my advice to you, to use these three kind of main principles in your job search. And my last kind of piece of advice is to please don't be discouraged, because I have been there, and that's why I like to come and speak at panels and seminars and things like this, because I know that it can be extremely discouraging to get month after month of rejections or maybe not hearing anything back. So when you send your resume to these HR portals, a lot of times all you get is a lot of silence. And I know how painful and discouraging it can be, but I am here to tell you that if you do listen to the strategies that you're learning in this course, and you do make an effort to network and make an effort to kind of follow this guidance that you're receiving from me and from Joe and from the rest of your kind of teachers and speakers in this series, that it will work. You will be able to make that jump from academia to industry. And I hope that when you do, you are happy on the other side.
Please join me in thanking Rebecca for her time. One last call on the attendance sheet. We dropped it into the chat function, but thanks so much, Rebecca. I really appreciate it. It's always a pleasure to listen to you present. You do such a fantastic job. And it's great to have NC State and an A to I alum back in front of all of the students. Really appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Sure.
Rebecca.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Good luck, everybody.